You know, when you think about government spending, it's easy to picture these huge mountains of paperwork and just endless red tape. But what if technology could flip that whole script? Make every single transaction clear, efficient, and transparent. Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the digital engine that's doing exactly that in India, the Government e-Marketplace, or GeM as it's known. So first, let's just wrap our heads around the scale we're talking about. The Government e-Marketplace has hit an unbelievable high of over 2 lakh crore in gross merchandise value in just a single financial year. I mean, that's more than the entire GDP of some countries. So the big question, the huge question, is this. How on earth do you build a payment system that's strong enough to handle a marketplace of this size and make sure every single rupee is tracked, secured, and delivered on time? Well, the answer to that massive challenge is a system that basically acts as GM's digital cashier. It's called the Public Financial Management System, or PFMS for short. And believe me, it is the absolute backbone of every financial transaction that goes down on this platform. So what is PFMS exactly? Put simply, it's the dedicated payment method that's built right into the GeM portal. Its one and only job is to handle the flow of money for every single item or service the government buys. Think of it like the government's own digital wallet, but one with the security of a bank vault and the precision of a surgeon. It's designed from the ground up to protect public funds. Now, integrating this wasn't just about making things easy. It's really about building trust in the whole process. By making everything seamless and automated, you immediately cut down on the chances for human error and delays. But the real game changer here, it's the monitoring. Every single transaction leaves a digital footprint, which creates this unbreakable chain of accountability. All right, to really get a feel for how this all works, there's no better way than to just follow the money. So let's walk through the journey of a government buyer as they process a bill, right from the moment it lands on their virtual desk to the second it gets paid. Okay, so every single payment journey kicks off right here at the buyer's dashboard. And this isn't just some boring list of transactions, it's their command center. It gives them a real-time bird's-eye view of everything they're buying. And from this hub, we're going to dive right into the bills section to see what's next. So once they're in the bills section, the buyer sees this really clear list of all the outstanding payments. Every line has the key details, the order, who the seller is, and its current status. All they have to do is select Process Bill, and that kicks off the whole verification stage. And this, right here, is where you really see that commitment to transparency shine. Instead of having to chase down different files and pieces of paper, the buyer has every critical detail, from their own department's info to the seller's contract, all together on one single screen. This isn't just about being efficient. It makes verifying everything super straightforward and leaves absolutely no room for confusion. So, this all boils down to a really clear 4-step flow. The buyer reviews all the details, they verify the documents, they apply any deductions, and we'll get into that in a second, and then they submit the bill. This structured process is the system's core defense against mistakes and makes sure every payment is properly checked. But let's be real, right? Not every purchase goes perfectly. What happens if a delivery is late, or maybe a service just doesn't meet the standards that were agreed upon? Well, the system is actually built to handle these real-world problems by letting buyers make very precise financial adjustments. And here's exactly how it handles those real-world issues. Let's say it's the physical product. A buyer can apply a penalty if it's delivered late, or if it's a service, they can deduct from the payment if a vendor fails to meet their performance targets. This kind of flexibility is absolutely key. It gives the government real power to enforce contracts and make sure they're only paying for the quality they were promised. So what's the real difference here? It all comes down to what's being measured. For products, you see, the penalties are usually tied to logistics, like delivery times. But for services, they're tied directly to performance. And having this level of specific control is so important. It means public money is precisely linked to the value that was actually received, holding every single vendor accountable. Okay, but what happens when, someone makes a mistake? A wrong approval, a failed transaction? It happens. The system has these built-in safety nets for exactly these kinds of scenarios, which stops funds from getting stuck in some kind of financial limbo and makes the whole thing much more resilient. And here's a really simple but totally vital feature for fixing things. If the official who's responsible for that final payment, the Drawing and Disbursing Officer, or DDO, spots a mistake, they don't have to reject the whole thing and start over. They can just return the bill to the buyer with a quick note. This allows for fast fixes without having to go back through the entire approval chain. It's smart. Now, beyond just fixing mistakes, the system has this really clever way of managing money that's been set aside. It's a process they call unblocking funds. See, when a payment is started, that money gets reserved. But if the transaction fails or gets canceled for some reason, this feature makes sure those funds are immediately returned to the budget instead of just being left hanging. It's a critical part of smart financial management. So this happens in a couple of key situations. Funds can be unblocked after what's called a terminal state, which just means a payment has completely failed and can't be tried again. But what's really flexible is that they can also be unblocked in non-terminal states. This lets an official proactively release the money if, say, a project gets canceled halfway through, which keeps the government's budget quick and responsive. So we've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of how a bill gets processed. But let's zoom out. What does all of this actually mean in the grand scheme of things? Why does building a sophisticated digital payment system like this actually matter so much? Ultimately, this whole system, it's all built to serve GeM's three main goals: efficiency, transparency, and inclusivity. The automated payment process, that drives efficiency. That digital audit trail we talked about, that delivers radical transparency. And by making sure all sellers, big or small, get paid reliably and on time, it creates a more inclusive marketplace where more businesses can get involved. So what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? It's that every single transaction is now a data point. Every payment is a piece of a much larger puzzle. The automation makes things more efficient, the digital trail guarantees accountability, and when you put those together, you get a system where public money is spent more intelligently than ever before. And this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. We've just seen how technology can bring this incredible level of clarity to something as huge and complex as public procurement. So if we can solve for government spending, what's next? What other public services are ready for their own digital revolution?